Seeing as I am a newfie, I better get to work on the second part. So where were we? The trench line. Looks like about. Oh wow, jeez. Could be 20 miles, almost 20 miles. Okay. The Newfoundland Regiment was stationed in trenches near the French village of Beaumont, Hamel, which lay behind German lines. It was a strategically difficult position. The German front lines were about 300 to 500 meters away, down a grassy slope, heavily guarded by barbed wire entanglements. The German 19th Reserve Regiment, tough and experienced, had turned the natural defenses of a deep Y-shaped ravine into one of the strongest positions on the entire Somme front. The Newfoundland Regiment's assignment, along with the rest of the 88th Brigade, was to seize control of the German trenches near the village of Beaumont Hamel. The regiment would be part of a third wave of attackers to leave the Allied trenches. 0 hour. The offensive began on the morning of July 1st, 1916 at 6 a.m. Allied forces bombarded the Germans with artillery for about an hour. At 7:20 a.m. they detonated more than 18,000 kilograms of explosives under Hawthorne Ridge. The ridge was an important German stronghold on its front line about 700 meters to the west of Beaumont Hamel. The blast turned the area into a giant crater measuring 40 meters wide and 18 meters deep, and it shows the explosion. They had mined it forward under the German trenches, I guess. In the preceding weeks, Allied commanders had debated whether to detonate the explosives 4 hours before the ground attack, 2 minutes before the attack, or at the very moment the soldiers left their trenches. A compromise set the detonation to 10 minutes before 0 hours. The timing was a terrible mistake. The explosion alerted the Germans that a land attack was imminent, while the 10-minute delay gave them just enough time to straighten their defenses and ready their machine guns. As the first wave of Allied troops left their trenches at 7:30, they were greeted by a devastating barrage of enemy artillery and machine gun fire. It was far stronger than anyone had anticipated. Fire goes off. Most men were killed or wounded in minutes. A second wave of troops left their trenches soon after and met with the same fate. The Newfoundland Regiment was still in the trenches awaiting orders to go over the top as part of the third wave of attack. And it shows the guys waiting behind the trench. The first guy going over. Oh, that's the Newfies. That picture. I've seen it before. I'm pretty sure. By 8 a.m. there was considerable confusion along the Allied lines. There's the officers getting up. He's the first one over the edge. By 8 a.m. there was considerable confusion along the Allied lines. The first two waves of attack had been devastating failures, but the British commanders were receiving conflicting reports from the battlefield. Making matters even worse, the divisional commanders mistook German flares for a signal of success from the attacking 87th Brigade. At 8:45, Brigadier General Douglas Edward Cayley ordered the Newfoundland Regiment to advance as soon as possible. Newfoundland Regiment advances. The men left their trenches at 9:15. 9:15. With orders to seize the first and second lines of enemy trenches, but as they moved down the exposed slope towards no man's land, no friendly fire covered their advance. Instead, German crossfire cut across the advancing columns of men, killing or wounding most of them even before they reached no man's land. Private Anthony Stacy described the advance in his memoirs of a blue putty. The wire had been cut in our front line and bridges laid across the trench the night before. There was a death trap for our boys as the enemy fire just set the sights along their machine guns on the gaps in the barbed wire and fired. There were other flaws of the Allied strategy. The week-long bombardment that preceded the attack did not weaken the German defenses as much as the Allied commanders had hoped. Instead, it had unexpected effect of leveling no man's land, which deprived the advancing men of any cover from enemy fire. About halfway down the slope between the British and German trenches, however, a blasted apple tree did survive. Now known as the Danger Tree, it became the rallying point for the men of the Newfoundland Regiment who made it into no man's land. But the tree provided meager cover, and the men became silhouetted against the sky as they approached it, making them easy targets for the German gunners. Many men died near Danger Tree, including Private Francis Lynn. He was 37 years old. There's a picture of him in a basket weave chair. Looks pretty stern. Stern Newfoundlander. Yeah, Newfoundlander. The few who did reach the German lines were horrified to discover that the week-long artillery barrage that preceded the attack had not cut the German barbed wire. Allied leaders had already obtained this information thanks to a series of raids that reconnaissance teams had carried out in the nights before the attack. However, commanders had dismissed the reports, convinced that the raiders were inexperienced and that the artillery bombardment was much more effective than it actually was. As a result, the majority of the soldiers who reached the enemy trenches were killed, tangled in the uncut wire. Attack a failure. At 9:45 a.m., the regiment's commanding officer, Lieutenant Colonel Arthur Hadow, reported to headquarters that the attack had failed. He received initial orders to gather any unwounded men and resume the offensive. But wiser counsel prevailed and the order was countermanded. Throughout the day, the survivors tried to make the long and dangerous journey back to their own lines, dodging enemy snipers and artillery fire. Private James McGrath lay on the battlefield for about 17 hours before he made it to safety. The Germans actually mowed us down like sheep, he later told the Newfoundland Quarterly. I managed to get to the barbed wire where I got the first shot, then went to jump into their trench. When I got to the second in the leg, I lay in no man's land for 15 hours and then crawled a distance of 1.25 miles. They fired on me again, this time fetching me in the left leg, so I waited for another hour and moved again, only having the use of my left arm now. As I was doing splendidly, nearing our own trench, they again fetched me, this time around the hip as I crawled on. I managed to get to our own line. Which I saw was evacuated as our artillery was playing heavily on their trenches. They retaliated and kept me in a hole for another hour. I was rescued by Captain Windler, who took me on his back to the dressing station, a distance of 2 miles. Well, thank God my wounds are all flesh wounds and won't take long to heal up. better than the best. What he called his account. The attack was a devastating failure. In a single morning, almost 20,000 British troops died, and another 37,000 were wounded. The Newfoundland regiment had been almost wiped out. When roll call was taken, only 68 men answered their names. 324 were killed, missing or presumed dead. 386 were wounded. The following day brought more fatalities. Lieutenant Steele survived Beaumont Hamel offensive only to be hit by a German shell on July 7th outside the regimental billets. He died one day later. Reaction. Beaumont Hamel plunged Newfoundland and Labrador into a period of mourning. Casualty lists appeared in the local newspapers, but information came in slowly from the front lines, and it was often incomplete. Many families had to endure a few tortured weeks of wondering whether their loved ones were alive or dead. St. John's Daily Star, extra, lengthy casualty lists. British officers sent, that's a picture of a newspaper, sent letters of condolence to many families who had lost sons, husbands, fathers, and brothers, and Allied leaders publicly praised the Newfoundland Regiment. Among them was Sir Douglas Haig, Commander-in-Chief of the British forces. Newfoundland may well feel proud of her sons. The heroism and devotion to duty they displayed on the 1st of July has never been surpassed. Please convey my deepest sympathy and that of the whole of our armies in France in the loss of the brave officers and men who have fallen for the Empire, and our admiration of their heroic conduct. Their efforts contributed to our success, and their example will live. The first Memorial Day ceremony took place in downtown St. John's 1 year after the battle. In the 1920s, the Newfoundland government bought the ground over which the Newfoundland Regiment bought the ground. The memorial park it established at Beaumont Hamel has become a place of pilgrimage for people wishing to honor and mourn the regiment. And there's a moose on a pinnacle at Beaumont Hamel. Today, July 1st, remains the official day of remembrance in Newfoundland and Labrador. Every year, people gather at the National War Memorial in downtown St. John's and other locations across the province to remember the soldiers who fought at Beaumont Hamel, as well as many other men and women who have served in the other forces and other wars. Yeah, it's pretty moving, and that is not a very descriptive account. It just gives you a feel for how they felt. Well, thank you, General Milley. I think you made the right choice. I think bringing the military out on the streets is quite an order, especially directly from the president, and there has to be a certain amount of call for that. Streets of Washington, after all. So, I thank you, General Milley. I don't want to get you in political trouble. I just think that as time goes by, we will recognize this as the first, salvation of the Republic. So, we appreciate it.